Alright guys, I'm back with another project, and this is actually the second time I'm recording this video because I forgot to turn on my screen recorder and just wasted like 20 minutes. But what we're going to build today is basically a page transition. It's something that quite a few of you asked for, and to be honest, this is something I've actually already covered in one of the e-commerce website videos. I think it was the last one, the third one, if I'm not mistaken. But in that specific case, we were actually loading in content from one page into the index.html page, and this is the concept that we're going to use today as well. But in this case, we're going to use a page transition to make it a little more beautiful, let's say. And yeah, I hope you guys are excited. I'll just walk you through it. I'll walk you through the HTML, the CSS, and then we're going to write the JavaScript together. This is actually, just give me a second, I'll show you guys what this is going to look like. Let's see. Yeah, that should be it. So we have this home page. It's just a dummy page. Obviously, I'm just demonstrating the concept. I want you guys to understand that, and then you can play around with it however you want. There are a lot of ways to use this. You can load in complete pages or sub pages and transition between those, but this is just to demonstrate you guys how this works. So we have our dummy home page, and we have two links on them, contact and about. You click on one of them, there's a nice and smooth transition, and the next or the content is going to be animated in, and this is content from another HTML file which is called contact.html. And then we can go back home, we can click on about, same thing, transition, content is loaded in and animated. We're using anime.js for that, and I think that looks pretty nice, and I'm going to show you how this works. So what I've set up already is a index file, contact HTML, about HTML, my Sass and my CSS files. The Sass is going to be compiled with CodeKit, and a empty JavaScript file. So the index HTML is quite simple. I've simply linked a style sheet. I've linked our JavaScript file and anime.js, so we can use that later on. I have a simple home wrapper, an h1, two links which are not linked because we're going to use JavaScript for that to fire our functions. We have a class of contact and about link. These are simple links. And we have a transition element, which is going to be the black rectangle that we're going to animate between the pages. Contact HTML looks quite similar. We have a div with new content. We're going to use this as a selector to select which part of the contact HTML page we want to load into our index via fetch API. I'm going to show you guys that later in the JavaScript. We have a simple h1 of contact, two links which are actually linked now because we're going to implement the fetch API only on the home page, not on the other ones. That would be redundant. We've also linked our style sheet here. Same thing for the about, exactly the same setup, about and two links. That's it. Quite straightforward, I think. Then I've simply applied a few simple styles, padding, margins, reset it, just some alignment and layout stuff. I've styled the links a little bit, added a hover, that's some margin bottom here. Then the wrappers do have a flex class on them, so they're aligned properly. And the transition element is also styled, so I gave it full height and full width, which is viewport height units and viewport width units. A background color, it's positioned absolutely so it doesn't interfere with the other elements. Left minus 100 viewport width units basically moves that element out of the way to the left outside of the viewport. And this is how we're going to animate it. We're simply going to reset that left value to 0, and it's going to animate to the right into the viewport. Basically, the index is just a crazy high number, so we make sure that it actually covers all of our content. This is it for the HTML. I think that's quite simple, and the CSS as well. And we're going to start writing our JavaScript now to implement the fetch API, load in new content, and create those transitions and animation via anime.js. So what we're going to start out with is a simple document.add event listener, of course, which is looking for DOM content loaded, and will fire a function. So this is just to make sure that our content and our HTML is actually loaded before we go ahead and mess around with JavaScript. We will then select our links. So let's create two variables for that. One is going to be the about link, the other one is going to be the contact link. Link actually, not plural. We're going to use document.querySelector, and the selector for that would simply be .aboutLink. Those are the classes that I showed you guys. Semicolon, don't forget that. Copy, paste, that's the same thing. We need contact link here. Okay, awesome. So that's done. Next thing we need to do is add event listeners to those, and in order to make that a little simpler, we're going to create an array which we can loop through and add event listeners to them. So let link array, well, let's use a comment first, create array of links, let link array, let's call it that. We're going to use our brackets here, and simply write about link and contact link. Awesome, we have created an array with our two links. Next thing we're going to do is loop through the links. We're going to attach event listeners, and we're going to fire the fetch function, which we are still about to write. The way we do that is simply write link array to select the array, dot for each to loop through them. And in this case, we will use each link, which will be a representation of the link that's currently being looped through. We will take each link and simply add an event listener to them. That means we are attaching an event listener to the link that's currently being looped through. So this this loop will do this with both of those. Event listener will simply be click, and again we'll fire an arrow function there. What we need to do now is call a function which we are still going to write, which is called fetch page. And fetch page needs one argument, which is the page that we want to load. The function will need to know that. So that would be either about.html, or it will load contact.html. That means we need a way to separate these two links from one another, and depending on which one we're looking at, pass another argument. So the way we're going to do this is using a switch statement, and we're going to switch each link, and we're looking at different cases. One case will be the about link. So if we're looking at the about link, what we want to do is fetch page with an argument of about HTML, and then we're going to break that function or that case. And the other case will be the contact link, of course. And in this case, we will fetch the page with an argument of contact.html. I think that's clear to you guys, or at least I hope so. If not, this is going to be a little clearer later on once we write the actual fetch page function. All right, I think this is looking pretty good. So let's go ahead and write the actual fetch function. Let's use the function shorthand. The name will be fetch page, and the argument that we're going to pass is the page that we want to load. So there are a few things that we need to do. First of all, we need to get the base URL of our page, because otherwise the fetch API will not know where it's going to fetch the content from. So the first thing we're going to do is get the base URL simply by writing let.base URL. This is our variable, and we will use backticks in this case. Backticks and $ and curly brackets, and I'll just paste that in here and explain it to you, so don't have to write all of that out. Give me a second there. This is what we're going to need. Window.location.protocol, it's getting the protocol that's being used on the website, and window.location.hostname is getting the host that's being used. And you can see we're using a // so you can basically imagine this as being something like http / and then the host name, and then what we're going to attach later on is the actual page, meaning our /index.html or /about.html or contact.html. This is how we're going to build the link that the fetch API is using to get our content. I hope that's clear. And then there's one other thing we need to cover. That's adding a port number to the URL if that's available. Adding port to URL if available. Otherwise, this fetch API wouldn't work when we are running this locally on our machine, because we're using a port here and we're not using a certain and we do not have a certain domain that we've used for this page. It's not online yet, so we need to add the port. The way we're going to do this is using an if statement. If there is a port, which is basically window.location.port. So if that's true, we want to take base URL and add to it this part. Basically, we're going to use backticks again. Backticks, 2 of them, there we go. And it will be, I forgot what these 2 are called in English. Whatever, you know what I'm talking about, you can see it. $, and then curly brackets again to add that to the link. Window.location.port. We can copy that from here. There we go. That's it. We're using the backticks to escape characters, I think. Semicolon, don't forget that. That's it. So if we do have a port, add that to the base URL at the end of it. That's good. Now we actually need to use the fetch API, and this is how this is going to work. We write fetch, and then we'll need to include the link that we want to fetch content from. Luckily, we have built that link. So what we're going to use again, backticks. Wow, backticks, there we go. Again, $ and curly brackets. And we're going to use the base URL, which we have built here and here in case we have a port. This is basically going to be our link up until this point. So if I'm not mistaken, this is either the host name or the protocol. No, it's probably the host name. This is our port, and then we have a / with the actual page. And the actual page, we're going to write that out simply by writing /, $ curly brackets again, and we're going to write page. What is page? Page is the argument that we have passed, so it's either going to be about.html or contact.html. This is the link that we're going to use, and that's basically it for that part. Then we'll have to write .then and 2 brackets, and in here we'll have response, and this is going to fire a function, and this function is going to return response into text. So it's basically converting whatever response we're getting into plain text. The response, I think, equals to whatever content has been fetched from the API. So we're taking that content, we're converting it into plain text. So let's just write that out here. Convert fetch response to string, and then again 2 brackets, write HTML, fire a function, and we're now going to parse the string into or to HTML. This is what we're going to do. So we'll write a new variable which is called doc, and we'll use a parser, which we do by new DOM parser brackets, yeah, and dot parse from string is the function that we're going to use, because we do have a string and we want to parse that into HTML. So we're going to define that. We want HTML, and then this is how the function works. We also have to specify tag/HTML. There we go. Let's see, let doc new DOM parser parse from string HTML. This is our string, I believe, and we are turning it into HTML. Yeah, this is what we're doing. The next thing that we'll need to do is let's see. I think it would make sense to start writing a animation at that point. So let's start writing our page transition animation that you've seen before. This one basically. Yep. Let's start writing that animation. We'll do that with anime.js. So first thing we're going to do is create a anime.js timeline to make it easier to create this animation, because we want to split it up into 2 parts. First, it's the in animation, and then it's the out animation. So these are 2 parts. That's why we're going to use a timeline. Let's call it transition timeline. Transition timeline equals anime.timeline and curly brackets as well, and we'll define the target right there. Targets will be dot transition element. This is the element that we want to animate. Element, there we go. And we can also define our easing right here, because that way we don't have to do that multiple times when we write our actual animation. Ease out expo is the easing that we're going to use. There are tons of options here. You can simply look into the documentation of anime.js. Let's give this a comment. Create anime.js JS timeline. There we go. And now we're going to write the actual transition animation by writing transition timeline and adding the first animation to it, curly brackets again. we do not have to define target or easing because we've done that for the whole timeline already. So the only thing we're going to do in this case is write 0 viewport width units, because in our style we're getting an error there, okay. In our style.sass we've defined that it's going to be positioned left minus 100 viewport width units. That's pushing it out of the viewport, and bringing it back to 0, it's going to cover our content the way we want it to. And then the second part of the animation will be .add again, same thing, and we're going to do left, and in this case it will not be minus 100 viewport width units, but rather 100 to push it to the right of the viewport. That's basically our animation already. The only thing we need to add here is a complete function, which is a callback. It works by writing anime or anim, that's how we do it, and then a arrow function, the comma there, and we'll simply use document.querySelector. I'll explain to you what we're doing here in a second. Just let me write that out. Home wrapper is what we want to target. And believe it or not, but we're going to simply remove the home wrapper. So what are we doing here? We are animating that rectangle into the view. It's covering the view basically, and once that part of the animation is completed, we're using a query selector to select .home wrapper. .home wrapper is on our index.html side. It's this part, basically the header and the two links. We're selecting that to remove it. Why are we removing it? Can't speak today. Because once the second part of the animation is finished, we need that space basically to load in our new content. Because remember, look at this, we have home, we're clicking on it, it's animating, and after that content is coming in. So what contact is coming in. So what we're doing is removing the home part here. That's important, we need to do that. And that's basically our animation. Let's see if that's working actually. Ah, wow, it's not working. Let's see. Unexpected token on 53. Why? Transition timeline. That's let's see what's going on there. Don't want to accept that, right? Is it the indentation maybe? Don't think so. No. Well, let's see. Let's keep writing our code. Maybe this will solve itself and sort itself out. Alright guys, let's keep going. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to use the set timeout function to basically delay the moment the new content is going to be inserted until our animation is finished. So the comment is going to be use timeout to delay content insertion until animation is finished, right? Because we do not want to load in the content once we've clicked the link, but we want it to wait until the animation is finished, until our home wrapper is removed, and then load in the content. So we do need to use a set timeout function here. We're going to simply write set timeout, and we're going to use an arrow function there. And right here, we are writing our delay. For now, we're going to use 1300 milliseconds. And what we want to do, once that timeout is done, we want to do document.querySelector again. And this is also a crucial step. I'm going to explain it to you in a second. We're going to select the body of the page, and we're going to insert before. That's the function we're using. We're going to use insert before. And in this case, we're not using doc, not document, doc.querySelector, because that's our new HTML structure that we've loaded in via fetch. And we're doing dot new content. This is what we want to select. So document, this is the new HTML structure from the page that we fetched, and we'll do a query selector for new content. That means it's either that wrapper or from the about page, this wrapper right here. This is what we're selecting, new content. And then we need document again, dot query selector again, and body div is the selector in this case. So what are we doing? We are first of all selecting the body of our actual page, which is going to be the body of the index HTML. We're then inserting before. This is the function we're using, and this is the content that we're inserting, which is the new content wrapper of the new page. That's why we use doc. Doc is what we've defined. Where is it? Should be, let's see, doc. There's doc. That's where we parse our string into HTML. So that's our new HTML structure. We're targeting it using the new content and inserting it before document.querySelector body div. So that means body div. So it's going right into that home wrapper. This is how this is working. And this is what happens after 1.3 seconds. There's one more thing we need to add here, and that's a small animation for the new content, because we want that to be animated nice and smoothly as well. So what we're going to do is write anime again. Whoops, not like that. Animate new content. That's what we want to do. Animate new content. Write anime. As always, targets, and the thing we want to target is new content, and then we're going to use a little asterisk. That's basically saying whatever is in that wrapper animated. So in this case, that would be our header and our link and our link. We're animating that. Let's just copy the animation. I've already written that out. It's quite simple. What we're doing here is translating those headers and those links. Translate X on the Y-axis from -1000 pixels to 0. That's basically moving it from the left to the right. We're using a delay function in this case, so we need elements and I to return the value multiplied by the content or by the number of the content we're currently looking at. So if that's number 1, that's number 2, and that's number 3, they will have a delay of 100, 200, and 300 milliseconds. So we're getting this nice effect that you could see beforehand already. Opacity from 0 to 1 and simple easing. I think that's it for our JavaScript, and it should be working now, but obviously we're still getting errors and I don't know why, so let's just take a look at it. I like to walk you guys through the errors as well, because it's just something that we have to deal with. It happens all the time, and we do need to find a way to figure this out. So it's still saying unexpected token on line 53. So why is that? Obviously, simple typo, it should be .add and nothing else. All right, let's reload this. Module is not defined. Well, that seems to be a problem with the anime.js there, but it shouldn't affect our page. So let's see. Well, that was kind of it. Not really. So the first problem I'm seeing is that the transition element is not covering the whole page. So what's going on there? Let's check this out. What is wrong there? Let's remove that attribute for a second. Okay, there we go. Okay. So what's going on here? Transition element. Let's look at the styles. Height 100 people, height units. Let's see, let's change it into 100%. See what that does. Same thing. Okay, weird. Let's see. What's going on there? Okay. So position absolute is doing something there, but it should actually... Oh! I think it's this. There we go. We need to define top to be 0 because obviously we're positioning it absolutely. So we need this styling as well. All right, so let's redo this. Let's try again. What is it doing now? Whoops. Okay, it's working up until that part. The in animation is working. Let's see what's going on there. Are we getting an error here? Doc is not defined at line 65. All right, let's take a look. Doc is not defined. Well, that is weird. Because we do have doc defined right here, new DOM parser dot parse from string HTML text /HTML. As far as I know, that's correct. And then we have document.querySelector body dot insert before doc.querySelector new content, comma, document selector, document.querySelector body div. What's going on there? Why is it not defined? Doc.querySelector new content is not defined. Why? Let's see. Parse string to HTML. Oh, I think this right here is at the wrong place. Just give me a second. Let's copy those. And I think we need to paste it there. Oh man, that's so weird. Let's try it now. Refresh. Oh yeah. Awesome. Okay, so that was the error right there. We put the brackets at the wrong place. this part of the fetch API, the .then HTML, it should not stop right here. It should go up until this point, because all of this needs to be part of this function. Otherwise, of course, it wouldn't know what doc is. That means we probably can also just tap that in. Yeah, looking good. Okay, now still that wasn't looking perfect. Take a look. Okay, something seems to be off with that animation. Let's see. What's going on there? We're going from left, from -100, we're going to 0. We are then removing the home wrapper, and afterwards we are going from 0 to 100 viewport width units, right? What is wrong about that, man? Just tell me. Computer, just tell me. That's actually looking pretty good already, but... I probably know what's going on. The transition element should not be included in the home wrapper. Otherwise, it will also be removed. Let's see. Boom. Was that it? Yeah, it's working, guys. Awesome. See? It's small little things, but they mess up the whole page. I hope you guys noticed what I did there. So the transition element was in the home wrapper, but the home wrapper is actually getting removed after this animation. That's why we're not seeing the second part of the animation, because we're removing the home wrapper, and with that the transition element as well. So we put that outside and we can animate it out. Let's check again. I think that's looking good. Boom, in and out. Awesome. In and out, about is in. There we go. Awesome, we're finished. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Sorry for the bugs there, but I think it's always interesting to see how other people go about fixing like small bugs or things that they messed up during coding. I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Leave a like, subscribe, comment down below, tell me what you want to see next, and I'm gonna be back with the next video soon, I hope. So see you then. Thanks for watching, and bye.